The House Committee on Economic Competitiveness will now come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Hoadley.
Here.
Representatives Bonak.
Here.
Outman.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Bagol.
Here.
DeBoyer. Saint Germain.
Here.
Grant. Brixey.
Here.
Tate.
Here.
Kofia.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 members present. You do have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Representative Harris makes a motion to approve our committee meeting minutes from December 18th. Seeing no objections, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. All right, we're going to mix the order up a little bit today as we are going to take testimony on House Bill 5288 by Representative Posthumus. Speaking on his behalf today is Garrett. And if you'd like to bring up any other guests with you, Garrett, that'd be great if we can. He is here?
Oh, no, sorry, he's not here, but you're in this part of your script.
Okay, thank you.
So I think these 2 are the people.
As these are two right here?
Yes, these ones.
Sure. All right, go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Garrett Medina. I am Chief of Staff to Majority Floor Leader Brian Posthumus. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue today. I'm here in strong support of House Bill 5288 because this legislation reflects Michigan's values, protects our economic integrity, and ensures that public resources are used responsibly and in alignment with ethical standards. House Bill 5288 would amend the Michigan Strategic Funds framework to require compliance with the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act and related standards before providing state incentives to companies. Across the globe, forced labor remains a grave human rights issue, affecting ethnic minorities and vulnerable workers. Michigan should not be complicit in rewarding or subsidizing practices that violate basic human dignity. By tying state economic incentives to clear labor rights compliance, this bill ensures that Michigan's tax dollars do not indirectly support human rights abuses. State economic incentives, whether tax credits, grants, or strategic fund support, send a powerful message about the kind of business Michigan wants to attract. House Bill 5288 helps ensure that Michigan's economic development tools reward ethical corporate citizenship, not companies linked directly or through hidden supply chains to abuses like forced labor. This strengthens the state's reputation among investors, partners, and workers alike. Responsible investors increasingly consider human rights compliance in their decisions. This legislation aligns Michigan with globally accepted business standards. House Bill 5288 also includes mechanisms for clawing back incentives when violations are identified. This accountability protects taxpayers and sets up clear expectations for business that seek Michigan's support, making compliance not just aspirational, but enforceable. This legislation builds on the federal Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which presumes forced labor in goods from certain regions unless proven otherwise. By adopting complementary state policy, Michigan reinforces national efforts and avoids creating conflicting standards that could weaken U.S. work on these issues. Michigan has long prided itself on principled leadership, whether in civil rights, labor protections, or ethical business practices. This bill extends that tradition into the realm of global supply chains and economic incentives, showing that ethics and economic growth are not incompatible. They are mutually reinforcing. In conclusion, House Bill 5288 will ensure Michigan's economic incentives do not reward companies linked to forced labor abuses, promote ethical business practices consistent with federal law and global expectations, protect Michigan's taxpayers, and enhance the state's reputation, and provide clear standards and accountability for companies seeking state support. I again thank Chairman Hoadley and the committee members for allowing me to speak on this important issue today. And I urge support for this from this committee on House Bill 5288. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Garrett. And Seeing no questions, if we can move on, if you please, state your name before beginning, I'd greatly appreciate it. And then hit the red button when you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jared Rodriguez, and I am co-founder of the Free Human Project, which is a national nonprofit organization. FHP's goals are to expose, disrupt, and eliminate forced labor from global supply chains while protecting ethical businesses, workers, and taxpayers. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in strong support of House Bill 5288. The Free Human Project was created in response to a growing and uncomfortable reality. Forced labor is not a foreign or abstract problem. It's embedded in global supply chains that touch American consumers, American businesses, and state economic development programs that are funded by taxpayers. Globally, forced labor generates more than $236 billion annually, enriching traffickers, corporations, and governments that exploit human beings for profit. Millions of people, particularly ethnic and religious minorities, are subjected to state-imposed forced labor through coercion, surveillance, and economic punishment. One of the most well-documented examples of forced labor is the Uyghurs, a mostly Muslim ethnic minority group in Central Asia, whose exploitation has been recognized by the United States Congress and addressed through the UFLPA. Because forced labor is intentionally hidden deep inside supply chains, governments must be proactive and not reactive. That is exactly what House Bill 5288 does. House Bill 5288 ensures that Michigan taxpayer dollars are not used to subsidize or reward companies that are connected to forced labor by tying the state's economic development programs to clear, objective federal enforcement standards. More specifically, the bill prohibits state of Michigan from entering into a new or amended economic development agreement with companies that appear on the UFLPA, a list that is maintained by the federal task force chaired by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It requires clawback provisions in state economic development contracts so that if a company is later added to the UFLPA, it must repay 100% of any incentives or subsidies received, plus a penalty. And finally, it applies these protections not only to future agreements, but to existing contracts, ensuring that Michigan is not exposed to ongoing risk. From an economic competitiveness standpoint, this matters. Forced labor functions like an illegal subsidy. It allows bad actors to artificially lower costs, undercut ethical Michigan companies, and distort fair competition. When responsible businesses lose contracts to companies that rely on exploitation, Michigan's economy suffers, and taxpayers unknowingly absorb the risk. 5288 does not create new federal standards, nor does it ask businesses to navigate unclear rules. Instead, it aligns Michigan's economic development policies with existing federal law, providing clarity, certainty, and protection for companies that are operating in good faith. The Free Human Project works with businesses, investigators, and policymakers to help identify forced labor risk before it becomes a liability. Our goal is not punishment, it's prevention. The bill reflects that same philosophy. It encourages compliance, protects ethical employers, and ensures Michigan's incentives reward innovation and integrity, not exploitation. In closing, it's both morally right and economically smart. It safeguards public dollars, strengthens fair competition, and sends a clear message that Michigan's economic success will never be built on human suffering. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chair. In consideration, I respectfully urge your support of House Bill 5288.
Great, thank you. And we are starting to line up some questions, but we'll continue on, and then we'll come back while you're all three here for questions. So go ahead and state your name and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Keith Den Hollander, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Policy for the Christian Coalition and a resident of West Michigan. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation's stated mission is to achieve long-term economic prosperity for Michiganders. While we may differ in how we believe it should be achieved at times, this is a vision that Christian Coalition shares. From our faith-driven perspective, economic growth is about more than creating wealth. It's about fostering an environment in which people and businesses can thrive together, which is why we believe House Bill 5288 is both good moral and economic policy. Every human bears the image of God, and as Christians we are called to defend the vulnerable, not just through charity and service, but by building systems that prevent exploitation of one another to the best of our ability. That moral responsibility has real economic implications and potential consequences. The use of forced labor anywhere in the world suppresses wages and production costs. It rewards bad actors and penalizes companies that invest in fair wages, safe conditions, and their employees. For individual workers, it strips the dignity out of work. People who otherwise could find meaning and purpose through their efforts are instead subjected to fear and coercion. As Christians, we believe it is important to examine how our consumption, investments, and partnerships affect people we may never meet, but whose stories may bear resemblance to our own. The United States was founded on the principle of freedom, and religious freedom was central to that. It should be lost on none of us that the forced labor we're talking about today is a direct affront to that principle. House Bill 5288 will prevent the state from entering into economic development deals with companies that appear on the UFLPA entity list. The UFLPA entity list was created to help end religious and ethnic persecution of Uyghurs in a country that has notoriously poor human rights protections and whose economic pursuits show little regard for the dignity of human life and liberty. If states were to give tax incentives to companies that impose slavery on religious and ethnic minorities in other parts of the world, it would be directly subsidizing the very things our country was founded against. For all of these reasons, we believe this moment calls for moral clarity and policy leadership. An economic mission centered on long-term prosperity cannot succeed if partners in that work rely on forced labor elsewhere. Exploitation creates artificial cost advantages that hollow out trust, distort markets, and make sustainable growth impossible. Prosperity built on coercion is unstable by design, and when it is predicated on the exploitation of a religious and ethnic group, it should be of even greater offense to all of us. We encourage you to vote yes on House Bill 5288 today. This bill is an opportunity to make a strong moral statement against slavery anywhere in the world by putting important guardrails on the state's economic development programs. Michigan should lead the way, and we appreciate the opportunity to testify today.
Great, thank you. We do have some questions, but to start off, just I guess the biggest question is, do we know of bad actors currently in the system now?
I believe that there has been some bad actors. To my knowledge, I believe that Goshen has shown up on the Uyghur list.
Great, thank you. Moving on with questions. Majority Vice Chair Bonak.
I think you basically answered it, but I was wondering, the Free Human Project, how do you go about looking at exploitation, and how do you find exploitation? Of course, the Uyghur situation is very obvious, but I know there's other countries that do the same thing, and even within our country, there's, from what I have read, subtle exploitation of labor and human trafficking and so on.
Thank you for the question. You are right. There are other countries, and the bill is not country specific. It is forced labor specific. If you look at the largest offenders, if you will, around the world, there really are three areas that stand out. There are more, but there are key three areas. That being China, India, and the Middle East, followed in that order as far as largest offenders of forced labor. So how we go about it, we use data and statistics. We also see what's happened when folks try to import goods into this country. If they do show up on the Uyghur list, they cannot import that good. There was a classic example of Volkswagen had a number of cars in port in Miami, and there was a widget found to be in a mirror, and now the federal government won't allow them to import those vehicles. So there's a real cost if there aren't businesses that are willing to comply with their and clean up their supply chain.
Moving on, Representative Altman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate the intent of this legislation and what you guys are trying to do. I've been personally tracking this issue for probably about 7 years now. I've watched a lot of documentaries and podcasts, particularly around the cobalt mines in the Congo and some of those practices that occur there. My question is, since we have this, you say it's the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. Since we have that federal law in place, why is this state legislation needed? You know, I was under the impression that any sort of federal law supersedes what we do at the state level anyway. So could you just explain that a little bit and why this is needed?
Yeah, yes, there is a federal list. There isn't necessarily a need for Michigan to create their own. But what we're trying to do as a state is lead the way and say, if there is any company that is found to be using forced labor, we should not be incentivizing them with state taxpayer dollars. So there is a little catch-up period, if you will, in that you may give an incentive but not necessarily know, nor would a company necessarily know unless they are looking at their supply chain and really trying to figure out where things are coming from and who's making them. So this legislation essentially solidifies Michigan's position when it comes to economic development policy, that we will not be spending taxpayer dollars on any subsidies or grants to companies that have forced labor in their supply chain.
If I could just follow up really quickly, Mr. Chair. So how long has that federal statute been in place? Do you know?
You're challenging my memory at the moment, Representative, but I believe it was 2018, possibly.
Okay.
I'll follow up with you and get you the exact date.
I'm just wondering, since we passed this, why this practice is still being allowed. Is it just a lack of catching up, a lack of enforcement at this period, or some other factor?
I wish I had the silver bullet answer for you. Practice being allowed is really difficult to try to define. But, you know, I think what's happened is American consumers, and this is me like pontificating just a little bit, but I think American consumers are purchasing with their pocketbooks, right? And we are forcing down the cost of goods, and companies are forced to try to look for cheaper product, cheaper goods, cheaper supply, and not necessarily thinking about what that impact is. So this is an opportunity for us to say, it's time to clean up your supply chain, and we do not support, as the state of Michigan, forced labor.
Thank you. Moving on, Representative Begol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know with the Goshen, this problem hits right here at home. I'm trying to understand, I heard 3 countries in your presentation. How many countries are on there currently, and do you know how many companies are on there? Are there American companies on there, or are these foreign companies?
Predominantly foreign companies will show up on the Uyghur list. How many? I don't have. It's a ever-changing list, but I can get you the current number in a follow-up.
Okay, just curious how big of a problem it is. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Representative Brixey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay with you. So the first question is for Mr. Den Hollander. You talked about costs, and I'm wondering if you could explain how are the prices of products that are produced in that region different than other products produced somewhere else?
I think the easiest example I can use, and while this may not be Uyghur labor specific, when you have a company like one of the ones that's probably more commonly known as something like Temu, where they're producing products with a lot of child labor and things like that, it drives their labor costs down, which makes them able to be more competitive than companies that are using sound business practices. And I think that would apply across the Uyghur labor field as well. When you have somebody that's not paying a fair wage, I think we see it even in our own society when you have hospitality industries that use undocumented labor and then proceed to pay them less than minimum wage. they're getting an unfair advantage in the economic sphere because they're not paying a competitive wage like others who are following the law. So I think the same thing applies across this entire spectrum. When you have forced labor in the supply chain, somebody's getting an unfair advantage at the cost of human dignity to someone else.
Okay. Okay, the second question is, first gentleman, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Oh.
No,
Jared Rodriguez.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry, no worries.
So this bill affirms part of Public Law 11778. We talked about the federal laws that exist. And so this bill affirms that the United States, part of this 11778, says that the United States shall prevent atrocities, including torture, enforced disappearances, severe deprivation of liberty, mass internment, arbitrary detention, widespread and systemic use of forced labor, and persecution targeting any identifiable ethnic or religious group. So I presume that you are supportive of the whole act that this is affirming.
Well, I guess we're here on 5288, and the question before the committee is whether Michigan should financially incentivize companies that already flagged by the federal government for forced labor connections. Representative.
So I abhor the idea of forced labor, and I think that that's one of the great things about our country is that we don't tolerate child labor and we don't tolerate forced labor. But the other things that are in here, especially really persecution targeting any identifiable ethnic or religious group, it seems like our own federal government is going against those fundamental values that we have here in America with the ICE raids that have been occurring.
All right, Representative. You've taken more than enough liberty on this topic. Again, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Rodriguez, as this bill is about Michigan's incentive programs to these bad actors. So thank you for that clarification. Moving on with questions, Representative DeBoyer.
Thank you, Chair Holy. Thank you guys for giving us a little deeper information on this issue. It's your Volkswagen example. It sounds like you could end up in a scenario as an American company, let's say, right, that you are, third or fourth tier down a line, and you end up, there's a product that it's discovered that maybe can be linked back. My question is, I guess I have no problem with that. Would you say that our hope additionally in this is that it will make those American corporations more consciously aware of doing their homework on who their suppliers are as they work backwards?
That is the goal. We would like American companies to clean up their supply chain.
Great, thank you for your testimony. We do have another gentleman wishing to speak in support of the bill, Mr. John Marina from the Center for Economic Accountability. If you'd like to come up, John, and if you gentlemen would like to stay up while he gives that testimony, and if we have another round of questions, it'll make it easier so we're not going back and forth. So go ahead and start when you're ready, Mr. Marino.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for being so late. The I-96 between Detroit and here is a little bit of a mess today, so sorry for showing up suddenly. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is John Mosina. I am the president of the Center for Economic Accountability. We are a nonpartisan, independent 501c3. We are based here in Michigan, but we work around the country to bring transparency, accountability, and free market-based reforms to state and local economic development programs across America. And I'll note that while I'm here testifying for the CEA today, I'll note for disclosure's sake that I'm also a senior fellow at the Reason Foundation, specializing in economic development policy, and hold similar fellowship roles at nonprofit and nonpartisan think tanks, the Better Cities Project, ITR Foundation in Iowa, and Bluegrass Institute for Public Policy in Kentucky. My testimony today does not represent the position of any of those organizations. I am here in support of HB 5288 and encourage you to vote in favor of it In October of last year, I was an invited witness for the House Oversight Subcommittee on Economic Development and State Investments inquiry into the failed Goshen deal in Green Township. I'd been involved in that Goshen deal since October of 22, when I was invited to address a Big Rapids Township community meeting back before that community rejected Goshen and the project shifted to Green Township. One of the things I addressed in my testimony to the subcommittee was the claim by a Goshen representative that the project's failure was due, quote, solely due to racist and ethnically charged stereotypes, unquote. And in that testimony, I put it out there are hundreds of companies from nations such as Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Thailand, India, Bangladesh, and others doing business in Michigan with nothing but welcome and good wishes from their new neighbors. There are even companies from the Republic of China in Taiwan, which the PRC government itself claims is part of China. Similarly, nobody had issues with the presence of Hong Kong-based companies in Michigan in the era before the PRC government violated its one country, two systems promises in 2020 and stripped away Hong Kongers' rights to free expression, free assembly, and so much more. I'll reiterate to you what I told members of the subcommittee, which is that opposition to the Goshen project specifically was rooted not in racism, but rather in valid concerns about the role the genocidal, imperialist, and dictatorial government of the People's Republic of China would play in our state and in our communities. I recognize that this legislation does not ban every company from the People's Republic of China from doing business in Michigan, and we would not support it if it did. Doing so would set a very dangerous and illiberal precedent. However, it is an entirely different matter and absolutely proper for the people of the state of Michigan, via their elected officials, to decline to subsidize companies that have been found to benefit from forced labor through the State Department's UFLPA entity list process. The usual argument for subsidizing corporations through the MEDC is that if we don't do that, all the jobs will go someplace else. And setting aside all of the real-world evidence of the past few decades worth of economic stagnation here in Michigan, these subsidies don't actually create jobs. When it comes to the companies on the UFLPA list, I'd quote Johnny Ringo's famous line from the movie Tombstone, well, bye. If I had to make a choice between working for a company profiting from China's genocide against the Uyghur people and other persecuted minorities in Xinjiang province, or not having a job, I'd like to think that I would choose the latter. Might actually even make moving to Ohio look good. Last year, I co-authored a report with Richard Morrison of the Competitive Enterprise Institute titled Corporate Social Irresponsibility. In it, we made the case that corporate welfare is inconsistent with any meaningful definition of the term corporate social responsibility. Companies cannot drain millions or billions of dollars out of public services through programs like the MBDP, MEGA, Good Jobs for Michigan, SOAR, or any of the other ones, and still claim to be good ESG corporate citizens in a community. This legislation deals with what may well be the ultimate expression of the idea that companies have at least some responsibility to be good corporate citizens, and that it's reasonable, appropriate for consumers, governments, and other stakeholders to consider those factors when deciding whether to do business with them. In this case, quite literally, the least the people of Michigan can do is not do business with companies identified as modern-day slave owners. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you all for your testimony. There are no questions, and there being no cards to read in, we do, however, have a letter of support submitted by Congressman John Mullinar, and that'll be available on our committee website. So that's good stuff. So thank you again for your testimony. We are going to move on to vote out this legislation. But first, we do have an H2 substitute offered by Representative Kofia. Representative Kofia does not wish to speak on her substitute. So would the clerk please take the roll?
I'll move to move the amendment.
Betsy's gone.
Substitute, sorry. I'll move the substitute. Sorry.
Thank you. Would the clerk please take roll? I didn't realize Representative Kofia left.
Yeah.
On the motion to adopt the H2 substitute to House Bill 5288, Chair Hoadley?
No.
Representatives Bonak?
No.
Altman?
No.
Harris?
No.
Bagol?
No.
DeBoyer?
No.
St. Germain? No. Grant? Brixey?
Yes.
Tate?
Yes.
Kofia? Yes. Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 pass. The substitute is not adopted.
And the substitute is not adopted. Representative DeBoyer makes a motion to report House Bill 5288 with recommendation. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to report House Bill 5288, Chair Hoadley,
Yes.
Representatives Bonak,
Yes.
Outman,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoyer,
Yes.
St. Germain, Grant, Brixey,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia. Mr. Chair, you have 9 yeas, 0 nay, 1 pass, and the motion prevails.
House Bill 5288 is reported with recommendation. All right, moving on. Okay, that ain't for 5288. We're good. Good deal. All right, so coming back full circle, we've previously taken testimony on House Bills 5168 and 5169, introduced by Representatives Meerman and Snyder. We did that before the end of the year. We ended that conversation with the understanding that there would be a few changes coming up on those bills, and I do believe we do have substitutes before us. We do have some cards to read in before we get to those substitutes. Wishing not to speak in support of the bill is Kate Skaggs. Not wishing to speak in support of both bills, 5168 and 5169, is Derek Benjamia. I butchered that, sorry, man. From the Michigan Beverage Association. All right, so moving on with the substitutes, we do have Representative Bonak moves to adopt substitute H2 for House Bill 5168. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to adopt the H2 substitute, Chair Hoadley,
Yes.
Representatives Bonak,
Yes.
Outman,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoyer,
Yes.
St. Germain, Grant, Brixey,
Pass.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia. Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nay, 2 pass. The motion prevails.
All right, substitute H2 is adopted. And we had a couple other substitutes, if I'm not mistaken. Representative Brixey offers an amendment to House Bill 5168 as substitute H2. Representative, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, it's just an amendment, just to clarify. So the purpose of this amendment is understanding the impacts whenever we have tax cuts. You know, we just heard a lot of testimony about corporate welfare. Whenever we have tax cuts, there are ramifications, even if it's new tax revenue, there are ramifications to all of the entities that rely on tax revenue to operate. The schools, public schools are a very good example. Local government is another really good example. So one of the things that I would be interested in doing is putting a cap on the total amount of tax credit that a company is going to receive per company or per location of facilities. So I do think that we need incentives. I do think that we need agricultural processing facilities. And so my amendment says that basically the first 50 million will be tax-free, but then after that it won't be. And I would be open to having a discussion, and I talked to the bill sponsor this morning about the possibility of having a discussion on fine-tuning that number. I'm not positive that's the right number to begin with, but I did want to raise the issue. And so, therefore, I move my amendment.
Great. Thank you, Representative. Representative Brixey motions to move the amendment. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to amend House Bill 5168, Chair Hoadley,
No.
Representatives Bonak,
No.
Outman,
Pass.
Harris,
No.
Bagol,
No.
DeBoyer,
No.
St. Germain,
No.
Grant, Brixey,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 6 nay, 1 pass. The motion does not prevail.
The amendment is not adopted. Representative Bonak moves to report House Bill 5168 with recommendation as substituted H2. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hoadley.
Yes.
Representatives Bonak,
Yes.
Outman,
Pass.
Harris,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoyer,
Yes.
St. Germain,
Yes.
Grant, Brixey,
Pass.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia. Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nay, 3 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. House Bill 5168 is reported with recommendation as substitute H2. All right. Next, Representative Harris moves to adopt substitute H2 for House Bill 5169. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to adopt the H2 substitute, Chair Hoadley,
Yes.
Representatives Bonak,
Yes.
Outman,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoyer,
Yes.
St. Germain,
Yes.
Grant, Brixey,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
The motion prevails. I believe Representative Brixey would like to offer an amendment to House Bill 5169. If Representative, if you'd like to speak on that, and then
Sure, it's the same as the other one.
Okay, got it.
Putting a cap on how much, and again, I'm very amenable to discussing the total amount, and I'll move my amendment.
Great. So moved. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to amend House Bill 5169, Chair Hoadley,
No.
Representatives Bonak,
No.
Outman,
Pass.
Harris,
No.
Bagol,
No.
DeBoyer,
No.
St. Germain,
No.
Grant, Brixey,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 6 nays, 1 pass. The motion does not prevail.
The amendment is not adopted. All right, where did we go? All right, Representative Harris moves to report House Bill 5169 with recommendation as substitute H2. Would the clerk please take roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hoadley.
Yes.
Representatives Bonak,
Yes.
Outman,
Pass.
Harris,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
DeBoyer,
Yes.
St. Germain,
Yes.
Grant, Brixey,
Pass.
Tate,
Yes.
Kofia.
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nay, 3 pass. The motion prevails.
Reported as House Bill 5169, reported as H2, substitute is adopted. All right, I think we're moving on here. So as we move on, that concludes our agenda for this morning. Representative Tate moves to excuse all absent members. There being no objection, absent members are excused. There being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.